All right, and we're live. Good morning, everybody. I'm Craig Hemingway, Communications Manager for the City of Moose Jaw. Thank you for joining us for our weekly update with Mayor Fraser Tolmie and City Manager Jim Pufalt as we have an update on city services and operations affected by COVID-19. Local media joining us this morning include Discover Moose Jaw Independent, and the Moose Jaw Today. So we thank you for joining us, and we'll take some questions from the media after we hear opening statements, first by Mayor Tolmie and then City Manager Jim Pufalt. Mayor Tolmie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. We are doing our best to keep the residents of Moose Jaw informed of changes that are being implemented due to COVID-19 pandemic through daily press releases, press conferences, and public announcements. I would like to say that Easter is a time to celebrate faith and family. This year, COVID-19 has forced us to celebrate Easter far differently. Thanks to the creativity and determination of local churches and businesses, we can still find ways to celebrate Easter weekend in a safe, responsible manner. Many local churches offer online services, and local restaurants are creating special Easter meals for pickup or delivery. If you can, support those in our community that are struggling. Organizations like Riverside Mission and the Food Bank are still in operation, finding ways to help the less fortunate in this time of uncertainty. For all Moose Javians, thank you for following the COVID-19 recommendations from the provincial government. We empathize with you. We'd like to visit with family, socialize with our friends and neighbors, and shop freely. Those days will return, but only if we continue to be vigilant. The Saskatchewan Health Authority says the key variable to save lives and overcome COVID-19 is our compliance with physical distancing, washing our hands, and staying home. In the meantime, we encourage you to find ways to be good to your friends, be good to your neighbors, and be good to yourself. God bless and have a happy Easter. With that, I hand it over to the city manager for his announcement.
Thank you, Mayor Tolmie. Again, to provide an update, stable situation has been maintained. Staffing levels and essential services are being provided. We did have some staff tested this week, and they were glad to report that all results came back negative. Which certainly reduced our anxiety level to some degree. Our safe zones are working to date, and we're enhancing by providing non-surgical masks where our staff can't maintain distance, such as our paratransit drivers. An extra barrier, of course, is believed to be a benefit when you leave a work zone or you can't control your distancing. And so, for example, I have this wonderful mask that my family made for me, and I've been using masks for the last couple of weeks when I have to go out for supplies. You can't control what other people are doing. You can only control yourself. So again, we're urging people to use masks if you're going outside your safe zones and help to protect yourself and each other. We want to thank our staff for continued efforts. We also want to thank our partners, QP Unifor and the Firefighters Union, who have been tremendous to work with over this past month. And in a major long-term emergency, there's generally two phases. One is the immediate actions that are required to protect staff, protect facilities, and essential services. And then there's immediate actions that are required to protect assets, enhance revenues, and decrease expenditures. And should be noted that we took those actions over the last 3 weeks, and we have used the same approach that in an emergency that most do, is that speed is really a requirement. Perfection is not always possible, but whatever we're doing is calm and rational manner. And we can say that we've probably, we've changed 120 operational changes have occurred over the past month while we work through that. And other people I want to thank to some degree, it wouldn't be possible without them, is our strategic leadership team. They've been tremendous at finding ways to work together, to cooperate, great ideas and input. So I want to thank them for that. And quite honestly, an emergency is generally a time that you can find opportunities to enhance operations, and we've done that as well. Video conferencing is one that is rapidly changing how we do business. Certainly, enhanced central purchasing and coordination are keys of what we're finding right now. And soon, and we know that we'll return to normal operations at some point in time, but as we're in the middle of an emergency, we've done other things to protect the city, and that is, of course, a hiring freeze has been put on. 2020 budget capital expenditures are coming back to council to get a second look. Again, there's impacts across the country and the world, and so we want to make sure what we're doing is been coordinated with council. And once those immediate actions are taken, then there's a second phase, which is, of course, to manage during an extended emergency. I was in North Battleford when the oil spill happened, and that was an extended period of time while water supplies were jeopardized and limited. And so there's longer term funding, logistics, and staffing that we have to do to be able to maintain those types of services. And as recovery comes closer, we need to be able to ramp up as again, if, for example, sports fields and those are asked to be used in June or July, we have to be able to provide that type of service. But again, it all depends on how the conditions change as we go through. And as well, construction season is actually upon us. We did, as you know, we've changed a number of our processes to ensure we had budget completed before the end of the year. We wanted to get tenders out early. That's turned into a two-edged sword because we are right in the middle of a pandemic. Our tenders are back in, and so we have to get back in front of council. So it's a good problem to have, is that we have our tenders out, we have pricing already coming in, and something that we'll be able to talk about with council on Monday. And we have to be careful to minimize the impact on the local economy. Construction jobs add a lot into the work, into the economy of the city, and we have to ensure that as much as possible, as recovery starts to happen, is that there's people and resources able to start that work. We have prepared a report for council that's going on April 13th, and there'll be more discussion about that next week. Obviously, it looks like it's a nice weekend. It's Easter weekend, and we want to encourage people, if you're using our parks and pathways, not the playground equipment, of course, but remember social distancing. And Moose Jaw Police Service, of course, is actively monitoring those types of situations. And there's a number that you can call. I believe it's on our website. So we wish everyone a happy Easter long weekend. Find ways to, as his worship says, to get together with your family. We are talking a video Easter dinner. So we're pretty excited. We haven't seen our kids for quite some time. Anyways, we're glad to answer questions.
All right, thank you, Mayor Tolmie. Mr. Pufalt, we will take questions now, beginning with Discover Moose Jaw.
Hey guys, thanks for everything. First question today, wanted to know what went into the decision to move ahead with water main replacement, the water main replacement program, and that's kind of what went into that decision.
Could you be a little bit more clear in like what is it that you're trying to ask? I mean, there's a couple components to it. So are you looking at why we made the decision, or yeah?
Yeah, I think that's, sorry for lack of clarity.
No,
why did you continue to do it amid the pandemic?
Well, there's a couple things. So one of the conversations that council, administration, and other communities are having, and the province is having, is that construction right now is a way forward to get the economy rolling again, and it is an essential service. And so it's not been something that's been restricted by the province in their announcements as to date. And so, for us, we have to have a bit of lead time when we put out RFPs or tenders so that we are prepared. And those decisions, again, as the city manager has made, these will be coming to council again. We will be reviewing our capital projects. We do want to minimize the impact on local businesses, but if there is still restrictions in place and businesses are shut down, this is not a bad time to actually be moving forward with those projects and get them done before businesses come back. Part of it is the unexpected interruption that cast iron water main breaks cause to businesses versus a planned interruption. And we want to be able to communicate with the local businesses if and when we move forward with those projects.
Okay, thank you. Second and last question. Will the process look any different, say, than usual? Will it take any longer? Less people on the job, that sort of thing.
I'd have to hand that over to the city manager.
Certainly, I think we've discussed the last time High Street was completed, there was a number of issues. We learned from those and will not be repeating that type of work. Again, we're not sure until we actually award tenders and sit down and start talking to companies as to any different changes, how many people can be on site and that type of thing. As we know, some of the rules that are upon us are dictated by the province. So I think there's some impacts, but we're not exactly sure what those are at this point in time, and something that we'll work upon. What we obviously want to do is ensure that there's minimal disruption onto the businesses as possible. We know there is disruption, but again, we're looking at additional parking areas, additional signage to make sure people know where the businesses are. And as His Worship says, possibly if we get out soon enough, we might be able to get some work done before the businesses are allowed to be reopened. And so there might be a window of opportunity for us.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you, Zach. 3 questions, Moose Jaw Independent.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
Yep.
Okay, yesterday the city of Prince Albert decided upon 2 measures to help its residents. The first measure was to take off any penalties and interest on the water bills retroactive April the 1st. I'm wondering, given that we're the similar size and we always compare ourselves to Prince Albert, is the city considering doing the same here? And can you explain why or why not we're not looking at the same thing to help people out, given the nature of COVID-19?
I'll hand that over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, the report is coming to council on Monday. There's a number of measures in there, and I think we don't want to preempt council's discussion, so we'll be able to talk more about that next week.
Okay, a second measure that Prince Albert has come up is that because the Premier has basically said we're looking at weeks, if not more months of isolation, that they are going to allow property owners to defer their property tax deadline to September the 30th as long as they apply, and there'll be no penalties applied there. Is the city of Moose Jaw looking at the same thing?
Again, I would give that same answer. Monday, the report is being discussed by council at the council meeting.
Okay, I have a third question. Recently, Mayor told me, if my facts are correct here, on behalf of the large city mayor, signed a letter to Premier Moe asking for additional extra funding to help the people most at risk in the community, and that would include Moose Jaw as well. So far, Premier Moe, I believe, has said no to this extra funding. Given that the mayor, by writing that letter, would have firsthand knowledge of the severity of the situation for the most vulnerable people in our community, is the city prepared to take direct action themselves to help save lives?
Well,
we have our own facilities here. Could we not put people up in some of the buildings that we own that are empty to help save lives?
this is obviously an urgent and emergent issue. And so thank you for the question. One of the challenges that not only we face as a municipality, but also the province is facing is that, the restrictions that are being put in place right now are to help those that are most vulnerable. And in this situation, this can create a knock-on effect where others within our community can become vulnerable. And so we are having discussions with the province and with the Ministry of Social Services. The communication line has been open, and we're trying to find a way for us to be able to partner with the province and let them know of the challenges that are going on in our community. So that was the intent of the letter, to raise awareness of the issues that are going on in Saskatoon, Regina, North Battleford, PA, and communities like ourselves. So I don't have any response as of yet, but it is an issue that we are going to be discussing ongoing.
Yeah, are we looking at maybe direct action ourselves if the province doesn't say anything? Because I think we have Mosaic Place, we have Yarra Center, we have the Kinsman up here, places where people could self-isolate, we could move bunks in there. They have showers, they have commercial kitchens. Could we not take advantage of them?
Yeah.
People that find themselves homeless or no place to go.
And those are great suggestions. And those are great suggestions. And again, we are having conversations with the province because we have to recognize that there is Ministry of Social Services, there's Ministry of Health, and they have oversight on these. But again, we're also talking with different communities of what are they doing, and Mayor Clark has raised this issue in his own community and had conversations with the province. So please stay tuned. We are having ongoing conversations with the province.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Moose Jaw Today.
Just wondering, has the finance department determined how much money Moose Jaw is losing during the pandemic, and if so, what is that number?
Again, that's something that's being presented to council on Monday, so we'll be able to talk more about that next week. I think one thing people need to recall or do know is that we subsidize recreation facilities to a great degree. So as you know, we're about 50% cost recovery on a number of our facilities. So closing down is actually saves us some money to some degree. And as you know, one of our first steps to protect expenditures was to close the facilities and lay off temporary and casual staff. So there is some benefit as well. We're seeing that fuel prices have dropped substantially. And as you know, our line of business, we very much use fuel. So there's some benefits we're seeing as well. Certainly we're working towards cost reductions to offset any revenue loss that we think is going to occur. And if I could just add to the last question, Your Worship, we certainly are locally keeping in contact with third parties that provide that type of service in the community. And we encourage the media to maybe talk to them. And as well, if people are looking to donate over Easter, I think those would be a great place to go. The food bank, the shelter would probably be thankful for any donations that would come.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
I guess based on your comment about savings, in which areas, activities, or departments does City Hall think there could be savings in revenue since there is no action happening or there are fewer employees?
Certainly Parks and Recreation, Transit. I think people have seen that we've reduced service to some degree. There's about 30% of the time is now dial-a-bus as compared to a regular transit service. Fuel, of course, as we've talked about. Number of people are off with childcare issues and or sick. And so, again, there's cost savings across the board. And the report presenting on Monday will cover all those areas. But again, we don't want to preempt council's. This is council's discussion to have, and so we're not going to preempt that discussion.
So you can't say at the moment which department will see the biggest loss of revenue and what percentage of the budget that represents?
Monday, I can probably say lots of things.
All right, fair enough.
All right, we'll go to any follow-ups. Discover Moose Jaw.
No further questions from me. I'm all good. Thank you.
Moose Jaw Independent.
Yes, one of the big issues there, the things we were going to do this year was the boulevards and back lanes, and we're going to do some enforcement on that. I actually spoke to some seniors, and they told me the last time they would remember anything like COVID-19 happening in the city of Moose Jaw, it would have to be back to the Second World War. And for many of them, they grew gardens and stuff, and that's how they helped make ends meet with some of the rationing and, unable to get stuff. I'm wondering, though, my question is this. Are we going to suspend those enforcements and stuff like that? Because is it not better to take a different approach given COVID-19 and we go in an area of life over lots and just allow people to grow potatoes or gardens if they so choose and maybe enforce it next year?
I don't, again, I think the Boulevard bylaw, which is actually coming Monday for third reading, was more of a setting some types of standards. I don't believe that we were planning to enforce much of it at this point in time. It was more of a public awareness campaign, same as we talked about, encroachments in the back alleys. So again, I don't believe that in this condition that we would be over drastic on what we were proposing. And I don't believe that we were planning to actively enforce. It was more so at this point in time to establish some standards and then communicate to the public.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so what you're saying, if I had potatoes or somebody else was growing potatoes or vegetables or a few flowers in their backyard to get outside and still self-isolate, the city wouldn't go after them this year, is that correct?
I don't think we would do that in any case. I mean, flowers are a positive, and people getting outside, and especially during this time, is really positive. So again, I think we always try and temper anything we do with judgment and reason, and that would be one to us that would just not make sense at this point in time.
I have more questions, but I'll let Jason ask if he has something.
We shot today?
I guess in your news release yesterday, you said that media is being denied in-person access to Monday's council meeting. Just wondering on which coronavirus restriction you are basing this decision.
Well, I think it's the 10-person requirement that's been placed upon us. And I mean, you have to know that the strategic leadership, our EMO team meets in the council chambers on a regular basis. We have to ensure a safe work zone for everybody. So provincial requirements and safe work zones.
The provincial government has said media are an essential service and allows at least one reporter to attend in-person daily briefings. Regina also allows media to attend in-person daily briefings and city council meetings. Just wondering why you aren't following their example.
We are an independent organization and we make our own decisions. Again, believe we are limited by the 10 people in an area, maintain the 6-foot distancing, and we ensure that our council meetings, our briefings are broadcast and easy opportunity for interaction with reporters as we're doing right now.
You just said that you're an independent organization. I thought that you had to follow the instructions of the provincial government. So why aren't you?
You were talking about City of Regina. We are independent from the City of Regina.
I said also the provincial government. So why aren't you following the provincial government's example then?
We are doing what the City of Moose Jaw is doing.
So why couldn't a pool reporter be allowed in-person access to the weekly briefings and council meetings then?
Again, we are ensuring a
If you're concerned about numbers.
A safe work zone. I think the questioning, we're not carrying on with that questioning. I think we've answered it.
If you have any further to that, Jason, we can certainly discuss offline.
Yep.
I have some more questions here as well.
Okay, time for a couple more, Robert.
Yeah, when it comes to the budget, given what COVID-19 has done to it, one of the suggestions that was made is that maybe we should reopen the budget, and the province hasn't done theirs. Is any more consideration being given to reopen that budget? And how do we make the budget balanced now that the Cities Act, if I understand it correctly, says we must have a balanced budget? And the only 3 ways I can think of it is raising taxes, borrowing, or cutting services. Are any of those 3 on the line? And are you discussing maybe perhaps borrowing because of the situation we're in?
Well, if I can answer that, that is a challenge that's being brought up with other communities in our conversations with the province. And so one of the things that we are, we have the least resources out of the federal and provincial government, and probably the highest restrictions. So those are conversations that are being brought forward to the province in our discussions, and we're letting the province know that those are going to be challenges for us as we move forward. And so we're looking to them to help find solutions. And so that is a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, I have another question here, and I just as I understand it, park maintenance that is listed like mowing lawns and stuff along that, and maintaining parks. That's an essential service, am I correct, by how I read your document?
Yes, to ensure that we can effectively maintain facilities, and certainly pathways are something that people are able to use.
Okay.
And garbage, there's also garbage collection. There's also garbage collection along the pathways that we have to pick up.
Okay. I'm asking this question because when it comes to park maintenance, such things as where we will continue our weed spraying, we will continue our mowing on city properties as I get it. And this will actually, have you ever considered this may raise greater health risks for those citizens with breathing problems and asthma? And by doing this, you may actually, if they have COVID-19, you could make the things worse for them, and some people will be more vulnerable. And maybe it's time that we just say we put that off until this passes and we look at lives instead of our lawns.
Yeah,
I'm not kind of, sorry, Robert, can you be specific with your question?
Oh, certainly. We're looking at, we're going to cut the grass, we're going to spray weeds. For people who have asthma and breathing problems, this can antagonize their problems. Now, at the same time, that makes them more vulnerable to catching any kind of a cold and quote-unquote virus. Are we considering maybe curtailing that till COVID-19 passes so we don't put them into a higher risk?
that's a good question. It's certainly something we can talk about with Parks and Recreation.
Okay. The other thing,
Last one, Robert.
I'm hearing from the seniors, and I'm an online news service, and a lot of seniors don't know what's going on, right? Has any consideration been given to doing more advertising? And when I say more advertising, I'm thinking in a non-online format. It doesn't make any difference to myself personally, but many people are telling me that are seniors and others who are not computer literate, can we do more advertising through our own newspaper so people understand what's really happening?
You know what? I think one of the things that we're going to be doing in the future, and this has been brought up in discussion, is reaching out directly to the seniors' homes and giving them updates so that they're aware of what's going on, so that they have the information.
Yeah, I'm not talking people in seniors' homes. I'm speaking to seniors that live in their actual homes.
Okay.
I guess, Robert,
Saying what's going on, they're asking me. They don't read because I'm online, and they say they do not see anything advertisements from the city of Moose Jaw in the newspaper of what's exactly going on, what are the measures, and what's happening. Is any consideration being put into advertising through the newspaper so that these people are reached and we cover everybody in this city?
I guess,
I'm asking this considering many of them are up in age and they would be higher risk than all of us.
Certainly, we expect that we're putting out news that would be reported upon. I'm not exactly sure why we would advertise, because I mean, we're putting out news releases every day.
Yeah, we have Moose Jaw Express on the line right now that's asking questions, and that's being reported. So go ahead, Mr. Hemingway.
Yeah, no, I was just going to follow it up with, that's not a specific concern that's been brought up to me by residents of Moose Jaw, at least to my department. But certainly on an ongoing basis, we always look at what's the best way to get whatever message it is out to the residents in the best manners possible. So always something we'll keep on the table. So I think with that, I think we're done. And we appreciate everybody joining us here today. And again, anything further to that, we can have some of those offline discussions as was brought up earlier today. Just get a hold of myself and we'll have that conversation. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy Easter. Happy Easter.